Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Mondays Down South. Zebo over here has officially let us know we're being recorded, so I think we're good to go. Hope everyone had a happy, healthy, safe July 4th weekend. Good to have you guys back, ready to talk sports again. We have a lot to cover and are going to do our best not to keep you guys here forever and just appreciate the support as always. Our big topic for the day is going to be comparing our top five quarterbacks to NFL. I should say not NFL, but to stocks in general. The objective is to keep it as current quarterbacks, people in the league, but it doesn't have to be our top five best. It's just our top five best comparisons. We're excited about that. But before we get into that, we actually have a ton of news on the NFL front and a little bit of UFC, which Zach and Evan will touch on. The first thing I want to throw in, just because it's relevant to the DC market that we have over here, is the Redskins finally, amongst everything going on in the world right now, have decided that they're going to start thinking about changing their name. In my opinion, kind of overdue, but I'll let Ev talk about that more as the DC person. There's a couple of names being floated around. Evan, give me some of the names you're hearing. Give me the ones you like, you don't like, and give me your take on the Redskins changing their name in the first place.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's the time to do it. Well, at this point, they don't have a choice. And obviously, Snyder isn't going to make a decision unless it benefits him financially. And now that, it looks like my light just turned on. He's got to do it now with FedEx, saying they want the name change, other sponsors pulling out. Like, he just doesn't have a choice. And Nike pulling the merch. I mean, that's a huge deal. So now's the time. And I also think this is just a great opportunity more broadly to make a whole rebrand of the entire organization, change the name, get new jerseys. You can start to think about getting a stadium downtown and completely rebuild the franchise and get a new look, because the last 20 plus years have been ugly. So your question about names, my favorite is the Red Tails, Washington Red Tails.
I like that.
To honor the Tuskegee Airmen. I've heard that Snyder wants to keep it within the Native American theme, but just make it a name that they're proud of, which makes me think that the likeliest one might be Warriors. But then I think they also want something that starts with an R, so you can keep the HTTR and keep the theme song, all that kind of stuff. And then I don't know. But my favorite is the Red Tails. None of the other ones have really inspired me that much other than that one, but I also don't think they're going to pick that one.
We're going to move on. There's a lot more to talk about when it comes to NFL, so I want to make sure we're keeping on pace with this. Of course, we've all heard the Cam Newton news. I'm going to save the other big one for afterwards, but Cam Newton is officially a New England Patriot. I'm really not that surprised. I'd be surprised if you guys are surprised. As a matter of fact, I think on a couple podcasts ago, a little while back, we kind of threw out the potential of him signing there, if I remember correctly. I think I had that conversation with you guys. He's coming back from injury. Personally, I think it was a great signing by the Patriots because they got him for next to nothing. We're talking about a guy that was an MVP a couple years ago. I know Evan has some pretty strong takes on that end, so I'll let him speak to that. But I will say, even though I don't think Cam will be an MVP again, I do think that Bill Belichick will make Cam good and relevant again. And I will also say that he may or may not come up in a future segment of today's show. So I will leave it at that. You guys tell me what you're thinking, and we'll move forward.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this one. I don't know if you guys have been watching all of Cam Newton's blogs that he posts on YouTube and whatnot.
Yes.
But they are really hype. So I've been way in on the Cam Newton offseason. The guy looks just even more shredded than usual. I think he's in amazing shape. Hopefully he stays healthy. I have him as a top 3 finisher for the MVP voting this year, based on this news. Assuming he
like that.
Assuming he starts from week 1 or at least very early, which I expect him to. Top 3 MVP voting. I actually said this before he signed with the Patriots offline. I'm saying it online now because obviously the fit, was the only question when I said this before. It was well, if he goes to a bad team, then he can't finish top 3 MVP. But top 3 MVP voting. Cam Newton.
Ev, I am going to jump on the hype train, not as much as you, but I really, really am excited with this talk about a rebrand, right? The Cam Newton rebrand. Those videos that he's posting on Instagram and on social media at large are just really, really fun to watch. He's been bringing different people, and whether it's like OBJ, whether it's Mohamed Sanu, the ex-Falcon, coming in and training with him. It's really special to see, and you're right. I mean, he looks like he's in fabulous shape, and I think there's something that is very congruent with that almost anger, that chip on the shoulder attitude that he brings to those videos. And I think there's some congruence with the way he structured his contract, because I think he is so out to prove that there is so much left in the gas tank, that I almost love the fact that he didn't go the similar route to Jameis, where he's signing a deal less than $1 million. It's pretty much all incentive based. So he can make less than $1 million. He can make up to, I believe, 7.5 million. And so I think that's it's very characteristic of Cam Newton and the person he is. And I just wish the best for him. And I definitely think with him working with one of the best coaches in NFL history, arguably the best coach in NFL history, I think there's a lot of potential there. So I'm all for it. But Sai, what do you think on the matter?
So first of all, Evan, let me just pose this question real quick. Do you think Cam Newton is going to be better this season than Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson? Do you think he'll be better than any one of those three guys? And I'm only picking three of the top three MVP finishers because there's a lot more guys I can throw out there. So I just want to hear on that.
Well, you factor in injuries, though. Like last year with Mahomes getting hurt, he didn't finish that high. So Lamar also could be down. It's more like it never always is the three guys you would expect. So
do you think Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson are more prone to injury than Cam Newton, who just came back from several injuries too?
No, but I mean, like flukes always happen where people get hurt in that performance. So
I'm just throwing it out there. Here's the other thing. I'm rooting for Cam to get back and do well. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm the biggest Cam fan ever. I personally thought that he had a great MVP season, but then after that, he proved nothing. He was extremely inaccurate. He wasn't a great off-the-field presence. He came out recently in the last couple of days saying things like, "Oh, I'm tired of being humble," or tweeted something along the lines of, "I'm tired of being humble," and then got absolutely roasted for it because the entire comment section was, "I'm sorry, when was the part where you were being humble?" So I think I'm not going to be like, "Hey, Cam, you're such a humble guy. I'm rooting for you." Like Cam Newton is not Andrew Luck. Cam Newton is the kind of guy that you need to go out there and prove with your game that you deserve that level of respect that you seem to think you deserve. Because at the end of the day, it's a game where you prove it on the field. I think he's certainly capable of that. I think Bill Belichick and the Patriots are about the best damn place you could go to help you regain your form. And I've always said that any quarterback can go into that system and do well. So I'm excited for him to end up there, and I'm looking forward to that. But again, he has to prove himself. Anyway, let's move on from a guy that has to prove himself to a guy that's already proved himself in a very short period of time and got paid handsomely for it, and Mr. Patrick Mahomes. Huge news today, 10-year extension. The man could earn up to over $500 million over the next 12 years and could be guaranteed up to $477 million, if I think I got that number correctly. Wow. That's really all I can say. I'll start with this one just because, I'm already on the wavelength of it, but personally, I know everyone's like completely shocked and confused by this number, or not confused, but surprised, because I don't think it's confusing. I think this is a great deal for the Chiefs. You guys might think I'm crazy, but I think this is a great deal for the Chiefs. I posed this question earlier to Evan and a couple other people when this contract information came up. I said, if you had Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Drew Brees at the very beginning of their careers, and you were told you could sign them for the next 10 years or the next 12 years and hold on to them for that period of time, would you do it? And keep in mind, Patrick Mahomes has been better than any of those guys ever were at his current age, being the fact that he was 24. I think the Chiefs did a great job with this contract, and the fact that they're not having a change in salary based on inflation is a benefit to them, because he could be worth more in 3 to 4 years than what he's worth now with the way the salary cap increases. I'm very excited for Chiefs. I'm very excited for Patrick Mahomes and securing that contract. He's the only person in the NFL that I believe gets to be paid Mike Trout money. I'll put it that way, which is one of the crazy things. So that's my take on Patrick Mahomes. But what do you guys think?
Go for it, Zach.
So I appreciate what you're saying, Sai, but that is a boatload amount of money. If we talk about Patrick Mahomes and we compare him to some of the other quarterbacks that are making very, very large amounts of money with their team, we talk about Russell Wilson, who's making roughly about $35 million annual salary. We talk about like guys like Matt Ryan, who are making right around $30 million. That's an astronomical amount, and that was some of the big stories just a couple of years ago. How could quarterbacks be making this amount of money? What they're essentially doing is they're preventing other talent from being signed to that organization. So you better pray and hope that this quarterback truly is the real deal. Now, I'm not denying the fact that Patrick Mahomes is not the real deal. I mean, he obviously, 76 touchdowns over the last 2 years, 18 picks. It's insane what he's done. But when you're paying a quarterback close to $50 million a year, over time, are you going to be able to maintain those Tyreek Hills? Are you going to be able to maintain those Travis Kelce's who are amazing tier 1 talents in their own positions? Like, they also do a great job making Patrick Mahomes look great too. So I just worry if I'm a fan of like the Chiefs, I would worry that 3, 4, 5 years down the road where you can't make these key free agent signings because your salary cap is kind of pressed against its hinges there because you have Patrick Mahomes taking up such a high percentage of that portion. Are you going to be good in 3, 4, 5 years? I know Patrick will be able to get it done, but what if there's an injury down the road? If Patrick doesn't play another snap, he's still guaranteed $140 million. I just want you guys to understand the true size of this contract before we just go ahead and give him the clap. So that's kind of my thought. What about you?
Evan, I'm gonna let you go, and then I definitely have a rebuttal to that. So please.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's such a tough one because, like, first off, he deserves to be paid that much more than those other names you mentioned. I mean, Matt Ryan making that much is ridiculous, but like Wilson is deserving. But like Mahomes is so far ahead of any other quarterback in this league, and being so young, he deserves to be a huge amount ahead of all those guys. Now, granted, it's almost to what you said. It's like it's hard to say. It's like a great value signing when you are devoting that much money over that length of a time, to one player. So it's hard to say it's like, oh, it's like, a great signing, but I'm also not going to say it's a bad move. I mean, it's pretty risky into one guy if an injury or anything like that happens. But I mean, obviously, like at this point, if he keeps this up, he's going to be the greatest player in NFL history. When he retires. So it's like, it's hard to argue at the most important position. And the one thing I will say to your point where I agree that devoting all that money to one player really causes issues with the rest of your roster. The scheme with Kansas City actually kind of helps them because I feel like they've been able to draft. They just go out and draft like the fastest guy in the draft or sign the fastest guy in the draft that might not even be that good. And it fits their offense. So I feel like they can almost save money on their weapons just if they just kind of go that route where they've done the last few seasons with guys like Hardman and, those folks. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of not, too big either way, but yeah, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. I got my rebuttal ready. 2 things. One, somehow Zach manages to bring Matt Ryan into this conversation some way. Like,
I started chuckling when Evan brought that up. I'm not going to lie.
Ryan's name in the same breath that Patrick Mahomes. Russell Wilson is fair because he has had, that sustained success from day one to where he's gotten, and he's still not even that old yet. No disrespect to Matt Ryan. He's been a very successful quarterback in his career, but also let's just not understate how incredible Patrick Mahomes' start to his career has been. He's 24 years old, so he's 2 years younger than all of us. In his first season playing as a full-time quarterback, he won the MVP and threw for 50 touchdowns. In his second season playing quarterback in the NFL, he won the Super Bowl and was the Super Bowl MVP, and he was by far and away the best player in the playoffs last year and in the league the last 2 years. And we're talking at 24, he's already in 2 seasons accomplished the 2 biggest things anyone could do. There's Hall of Famers that haven't accomplished both of those things that have played over a decade or more in the NFL. So yes, if there's one person who deserves more than the rest, it's Patrick Mahomes. The other thing that we need to talk about is Andy Reid and the Chiefs. The way they handle their system does not require a lot of high budget players for them to win. Last year in the Super Bowl, or just in the playoffs altogether. If you point to the Chiefs last year, the names that were big on the roster, I think you could point to maybe 3 or 4 that were huge names. And then everybody else was people that were either young, fast, and quick, or people who just weren't that great and were made up for with the fact that Mahomes and Hill and Kelsey made that offense better than anybody else. I think even with paying Mahomes the amount of money they're paying him, they'll still be able to retain enough people to keep the offense together with the system that they run, because Reed is just that creative offensively and Mahomes is just that good. And I think they'll still be able to overcome those deficits that they might have on the defensive end. Because, I mean, if you want to talk about in the past, think about Tom Brady, think about Peyton Manning, think about other players that have had success. They didn't always have perfect teams. That they got paid a lot of money at the time when the cap space was smaller, and they still took up a big percentage of their cap room earlier on in their careers and still found success. I think Mahomes is a perfect example of that. And as we move forward, the cap will only get bigger and Mahomes' salary will not increase. So his salary will be a smaller percentage of the overall cap. So with that in mind, I think he deserves what he got. I don't think anyone else is even close in terms of potential and in terms of what they've already achieved. But again, I think that'll come up in the stock debate later on. So unless you have any more points, Zach, I was going to say UFC, but go ahead.
No, and to your point, Cy, I'm pretty sure the Chiefs were able to have almost like a sigh of relief after he grabbed the pen and signed on the dotted line, because they just locked up their quarterback for the next 10, 12 years. That's got to be a nice little breath of fresh air if you're a Chiefs fan, because, you know, despite the fact that you're right, like you can be very inundated by the contract right now. I think over time it'll pass by, and the knowledge that you'll have is essentially, we got our boy for the next 10, 12 years, and he's certainly not going to be complaining. And that's a nice aspect too. Also, one more thing too. You mentioned he was 24 years old, Cy. Mm-hmm. What have we been doing wrong, guys? We're 25, 26 years old. Like, we could have been making $500 million if we just did it the right way, man. Like, gosh, we definitely missed out on these opportunities.
We could have been making $100 million if we were the best player in maybe NFL history. Yeah, I like how you made that sound super easy. The other thing, one last thing I'll throw out is, in 2 years, when his current contract would have been up, think about how much he would be worth at that point if he won 1 or 2 more Super Bowls, right? Like, at that point, you could argue his contract might have even been – they might have even asked for more, and it might have even been worth the more, right? So I almost feel like the Chiefs got him before he got even more expensive. Like, about as early as you can sign maybe somebody who will go down as one of the all-time greats. So I'll leave it on that note. I know you two have some UFC news, so I'm going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride you guys are about to take me on. So go ahead.
Yes, sir. So obviously, we are coming up. Saturday is UFC, I think 251 is the number, the first card in Fight Island. And we had pretty big news over the weekend, over the holiday weekend. Gilbert Burns tests positive for COVID-19, can't fight in the main event. So we get the fight we were looking for to begin with. Jorge Masvidal steps in on 1 week's notice to fight Kamaru Usman. The UFC caved and gave him close to the money he was demanding, because they were boxed into a corner and needed this big main event to go on. So it's Masvidal Usman headlining the UFC 251 at Fight Island this Saturday. Zach, thoughts on the new main event?
I am really excited about this, really excited about this. Despite the fact that I was not very much excited about a Gilbert Burns Kamaru Usman fight, there are a couple reasons kind of behind that. Like, one, they were teammates. Two, I just didn't think Gilbert Burns' style matched up as well to the avid wrestler that Kamaru is. With Masvidal stepping in and taking this fight, there's just enhanced excitement for this card, because not only is it Masvidal and Usman, they also have bad blood with each other. They clearly don't like each other. Masvidal is on a 4 or 5 win streak right now, but the last 3 opponents were incredibly exciting. Like, the fact that he said exactly what he was going to do to Darren Till when Darren Till had 1 loss, and just totally knocked him out in the second round, out cold, like head slapping against the canvas. The next fight, he knocks Ben Askren out in 5 seconds, and then the fight after that, he takes Nate Diaz to town. And this is a guy that, you know, Diaz was a guy that beat McGregor, and McGregor at some points looked unbeatable throughout his UFC career. So, you know, Masvidal definitely brings a certain excitement, and just it's going to be a lot of a fan base too. So I think this, just like the fact that they have bad blood with each other, and the fact that they truly are, in my opinion, the best welterweights right now. It'll be fun seeing them go at it. Obviously, you see great matchups with Holloway and Volkanovski and Peter Yan and Jose Aldo. So really excited to tune into this one, E. But what are your thoughts?
Man. Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head in that. I mean, obviously, this card as a whole was stacked completely, but the main event wasn't really, necessarily a true super exciting main event, and it is now. So now you have a super exciting main event and a stacked deep card, which I'm just thrilled for. And obviously, we don't talk about betting much, and none of us are really betting guys, but I was checking out some of the lines for this weekend. There's some pretty tempting lines. So I wanted you to give just quickly, no analysis or anything, so we can move on to the other topic we have. But what are your full main card picks, all 5? You got picks in mind?
Oh, the first 2 main card picks are escaping me, but I wouldn't mind doing a parlay. And if I were to do a parlay between the final 3 fights, I would go Peter Yan knockout. I would go. Oh gosh, it's so tough. Volkanovski knockout.
Really?
And I would go.
Aren't you a Holloway guy?
Decision. I'm a big Holloway guy, but I think Volkanovski is just going to tear him to shreds. I think Holloway is past his prime, and I also think that Usman is going to win, but by decision.
Yeah,
I think if you were to pick the final 3, what would you go with?
Yeah, the main event is so hard now because I actually think coming on short notice, it's actually a big advantage for Masvidal because assuming Masvidal has been preparing this entire time, which is what he said he's been doing for either fighter, thinking that one might get COVID and drop and they'd pay him. He's just been generally preparing, whereas Usman's been preparing for someone completely different. So I think it's a big advantage for Masvidal. So I think Usman is actually the better fighter, but I'm going to pick Masvidal, and I love the plus 260 on that.
Yeah.
Great line.
It's great.
And then I also love Holloway plus 185.
Okay.
You make some good points in there. So I would take Holloway, especially on the line there. I think Peter Yan convincingly, Rose Namajunas convincingly. And Paige Van Zandt kind of sucks, but she's plus 625.
I forgot Rose is fighting too. That's really exciting.
That's a good fight too.
That's right. Welcome back, Sai here. Sai, maybe you can, I know you did a little bit of an introductory, but do you want to go first and maybe list out how you made the decision here?
Yeah, mine was pretty straightforward. I just looked up stocks. I was looking up ones according to ones that are performing well, ones that are on the brink of potentially performing well, ones that aren't performing as well as some other unique metrics that I thought would be a nice comparison to some quarterbacks in the league. I tried to get a little bit creative with the list. I didn't want to be too obvious, but with that being said, I'm also going to start with the most obvious one since we already talked about him, to round it out and to, have it be number 1 on the board, just like he is the number 1 most paid player in the NFL and the number 1 quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. The most easy comparison that there ever could be. Amazon. If you ain't got it, you're crazy. If you don't know it, come on. Best stock there is, continues to grow, dominating the world. Patrick Mahomes, best stock there is in the NFL, as good as there is, and will continue to grow. They're both extremely expensive, but they're both worth the price to pretty much anyone that's invested in them, and their ceiling is astronomical. So
I'll go to another big namer, Aaron Rodgers to Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway, I think it's still highest market cap, but it's also maybe on the down slope here. I think they've been less active in terms of buyouts and mergers and stuff, although they did just make one with, I think, Dominion Energy pretty recently. So that was kind of a big one. And then Aaron Rodgers kind of on the down slope of his career, but still a household name, kind of idea. So
what would you consider Jordan Love as a part of that equation? Does he have he fulfill a certain role in that stock equation?
I didn't get too deep in that analysis, but
that's insider trading side. That's
the Dominion Energy, I guess, right? Yeah, I don't know.
If we're gonna do a stock conversation, we have to debate it as finance individuals. We're all business majors. I wasn't a finance guy, but I gotta debate your future outlook here, man. I don't know about this whole sleeping on Aaron Rodgers kind of situation. You say downward slope, I say bounce back. I say the Packers were really good last year, even in a less great performance from Aaron Rodgers. I think this season he'll get a fully healthy Devontae Adams. I think the offense is better than it's going to be in a couple years, and I think Aaron Rodgers gets a little bit better. So who knows?
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get my 5 out of the way here because it's relatively embarrassing because I didn't realize till the very last minute. Shout out E. Bitcoin is not a stock; it's a currency. So I'm just gonna go ahead and link Bitcoin to Sam Darnold because it's not worth anything, but people still think that it's the next big thing. The Jets were the worst in offensive productivity last year. Somehow, some way, they finished 7-9. I don't know how. Le'Veon Bell had the worst year of his career because they couldn't throw the ball. So therefore, defenses just stacked the box constantly. Sam Darnold is now entering his 3rd year, I believe. And the fact that he hasn't generated, he's generated a lot of excitement and buzz. I know he's on the hype train. Not really sure why, because if you look at anything statistically related to Sam Darnold, everything points in the wrong direction. It reminded me of Bitcoin in a way because everyone talked about Bitcoin a couple years ago, and I don't understand Bitcoin. I don't understand the mine shafts and the minefields, none of that. But what I do know is that there is a ton of hype behind Bitcoin, and it hasn't surmounted to anything thus far. So that's my 5.
Hey, it may not. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You go first. Go.
I was just going to say, it may not be actually worth anything, but it can still make me a ton of money, is my rebuttal to your Bitcoin per point. But actually, and like you said, I like Sam Darnold. If you watch him play, I actually think he looks really good. Coming off of mono last year, you said they were 7-9. You don't know how. How is because Sam Darnold came back and they played great when he was there. So I actually think he was probably above 500 as a starter last year.
He was 7-6, yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty good. I think he has a good year this year. I mean, the Jets offense doesn't have much to help him, but I actually, like you said, I'm high on Sam Darnold. So I'm going to take the upside Bitcoin swing with him.
So I'm not even going to talk about Sam Darnold. I'm going to talk about good old Mr. Zach Mikulik over here because I'm currently sitting at a bar on a bar stool, and I think there's a website called Barstool Sports that may not have had a comparison of quarterbacks to stocks, and I believe there was one with the name of Sam Darnold, then a non-stock in the form of Bitcoin compared to him.
I love that one. I've got 2 of those.
Just a coincidence. I just want to say to our listeners and viewers, Zach over here came up in here and was like, hey, man, I got this cool idea. Let's compare quarterbacks to stocks. Sure enough, Evan and I go and research it, and like 10 seconds later, we're both like, I feel like this might have come from something. So we want to give a shout out to the people at Reddit, whoever started that thread.
It's a good one. I mean,
yeah, it's a great trend. That's why we're excited about the topic. But if we don't give Zach a little bit of crap for trying to claim credit for it, then, who would we be? So
that's right.
With that
I feel like, we need to double down on giving Zach a hard time because, Zach, didn't you get torched in a Litcoin or Litecoin investment because you you got it confused with Bitcoin or whatever?
Yeah, quick 30-second story on this. A couple of my fraternity brothers back from school this is right after graduation when Bitcoin had exploded. And so, and some of the other currencies like Ethereum and Litecoin were also exploding too. And so we got this text and it was like, hey, you guys should buy Litecoin right now. It's for a fabulous deal. And this was someone who had been like scouring the internet, like Reddit, reading all these different things. So he was like our Bitcoin SME at the time, despite the fact that he had no idea what he was talking about. And so he was like, guys, you need to rush as quickly as you can and buy Litecoin. So for someone that was as inexperienced as myself with all of this, with Coinbase in general, I was like, yeah, sure, cool. So I bought like Bitcoin at arguably its most overstated value ever. I think it was at 18,000. I bought like, $100 worth of the 18,000 or something equivalent. And I responded in the group thread and I said, hey guys, I bought it at 18,000. Let's go, boys, with like 10 emojis. And then all of them were like, wait, did you buy Bitcoin or Litecoin? I was like, oh, you told me to buy Litcoin, like Bitcoin, but it's really lit right now. So go out, buy everything. They're like, no, you idiot, buy Litecoin. Bitcoin, you don't want to buy right now. It's at the most overstated value it's ever been at right now. And I felt like a huge idiot. So thank you for bringing that up.
I got you, man.
I immediately divested like 2 weeks later and I was done with it.
There's a gym. I believe it's got a purple logo. A lot of people used to go there. Pretty cheap membership. There's jokes about them offering pizza slices on the way out, but I think that's a little bit ridiculous because it's affordable and worth it for people. And it goes by the name of Planet Fitness. Pre-corona, was one that anybody could go to. It was always performed well. There was a lot of people that had accessibility to it. It's pretty prominent around the nation. I am comparing Cam Newton to Planet Fitness because Planet Fitness is a stock that used to be pretty good. If you look at the trajectory of how it was pretty consistent over time because of its accessibility, like I was saying. It took a dip in recent times with, people not being able to go to gyms, obviously with the COVID situation. But it's a stock that, like I said, is cheap. It's not very expensive. It's also one where the membership is cheap. And I think right now the Patriots bought into Cam at the cheapest he'll ever be. And I expect once this whole COVID situation clears up for people to start going back to the gym and Planet Fitness to bounce back and continue to do well. And I expect Cam Newton to bounce back with a little bit of Patriots stimulus package. So I figured I'd compare Cam Newton to Planet Fitness. Might have been a reach, but I'm about it. So there it is. Yep.
E, what's your 4?
Let's see. This one's fun. I'm going to do Ben Roethlisberger to Boeing. Obviously Ben, he's had a troubled career. Overall, he's had a good career on the playing field, but it hasn't come without, controversy off of the field. And especially right now for Ben, coming off the injury, not looking too high at this point in his career. And then Boeing, it's been a rough year or two for Boeing with all the bad PR they've had and some of the issues with the planes that they still haven't been able to come out of. So Ben Roethlisberger to Boeing, and not in a good way. Although they had good times. Both of them. But
sounds good. Well, hey, I'll keep my 4 in the energy sector, the energy and infrastructure sector, I should say. I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins aligning to GE. Now, talk about me being an idiot. In my previous story, I was also an idiot a couple years ago and bought like an X amount of money that I'm not even proud saying in GE stock when it was on its far decline. And if you guys remember, GE was divesting different parts of its business. It was trying to be smaller in size. They were kind of doing a complete rebrand, but they weren't sure if they were going to stick to the washing machines, different household items, or they were going to stay more in the energy department. And so as they were figuring these decisions out, more bad news kind of came about on their financials. Their CEO, different board members were actually hiding different information, storing it around on the balance sheet. Once that information came to fruition and was publicized, the stock tumbled from about $30-something a share. I bought it at 18 as it was on its way down. The stock now trades at $7 a share. The reason why I think this is Kirk Cousins is because GE was a cash cow. I mean, they were a dominant force back in the 80s, 90s, and didn't have a lot of competitors. Now, I'm not saying Kirk Cousins ever had competitors, but what I am saying is that Kirk Cousins received a lot of money in Minnesota for above average performance. However, he never got the job done. And I think, it's just kind of a staple of both of their careers where like they both had their glory moments, but it inevitably led to disappointment. I think that Kirk Cousins was paid way more, way overvalued. And I definitely think that the same goes for GE. So I figured I'd make the comparison.
I love it.
Yeah, and Av's going to be really excited about anything that
love it.
Really talks about Kirk Cousins. But I will say this man did go into New Orleans last year and beat arguably the best or second best team in the NFL during the playoffs with the Vikings. So, let's not completely sleep on Kirk Cousins. What's up?
2 years in a row.
True.
Never the icing on the cake, though. Always disappointment.
Last year in the playoffs. This is true. His contract's not up though, so we'll have to find out and see if that's
$74 million guaranteed contract. Yes.
Hey, trust me. Money getting overpaid will come up big for going forward on my list. Speaking of people that are getting overpaid or shouldn't really be paid at all in the NFL, the next person I'm going to talk about is good old Mitch Trubisky. This man is not really my idea of a flashy player. He doesn't have a lot of upside. He is someone that came in the league kind of competing. He was a top pick coming out of UNC. Everybody said, hey, let's give Mitch a chance. Let's put him in this Matt Nagy offense, give him a chance to shine. He never really did shine. So my comparison for Mitch Trubisky is good old J.C. Penney. J.C. Penney, I don't know, man. I haven't been in JCPenney or seen a JCPenney in a minute, but that's a stock that used to trade at a decent value. It was never really flashy. You know, I was never really flexing on people with my JCPenney, but now JCPenney gets traded. JCPenney gets traded at under $1 a share. So that's kind of how I see Mr. Trubisky, because I think his career in the NFL is only at best as a backup. That guy that you were just kind of like, I just need to throw something all real quick. So let me throw Mitch Trubisky out there and feed him to the wolves. So yeah, that's my comparison to Mitch Trubisky. I actually really am not a fan of Mitch Trubisky. I think he has taken a great Bears team that had so much talent around him and done absolutely nothing with it. He had a great head coach in Matt Nagy. Of course, they brought Nick Foles over, so I don't really know what the replacement of JCPenney is, but, you know, Nick Foles could be whatever stock that is. So, Mr. Trubisky, JCPenney, that's my comparison. Ev, kicking it over to you.
I like it. I'm going to go to a similar young quarterback. I'm going to do Kyler Murray, and I am going to do Uber with Kyler Murray. And the reason, obviously, Uber just completely bombs with their IPO in 2019. Now, this is the one where it's not quite right, because I wouldn't say Kyler's rookie season was a complete bomb. It wasn't great, I wouldn't say, but it wasn't a complete flunk like Uber's IPO was in 2019. But obviously, you still got to love what you see in the future for both of these guys. Obviously, Kyler Murray, I think all of us expect pretty big things, even beginning this year with him. And obviously, Uber, they actually just bought Postmates, which is huge. I think that was either today or, I think it was today, or sometime late last week. But I mean, that's a huge deal for them. So bright things in the future, but a rough start for both of those guys, I would say.
I would disagree and say Kyler Murray actually had a good rookie season, all things considered. You get Cliff Kingsbury coming out of college as a losing head coach, coaching your team. You're coming in, you're new to the system. I thought he played pretty well. He kept them in a lot of close games. I do agree with the comparison of Uber and Kyler long term, because they're both, also put it this way, they're both very, they have a lot of quick things to offer. But at the same time, I also believe that Kyler has done better than I think people give him credit for doing. And I also think he has more pieces and is a second year in. So I think maybe saying he had a rough first year is a bit of a stretch in my opinion, but I just, that's my 2 cents.
And as Uber got Postmates, Kyler got DeAndre Hopkins. So
there it is.
There to go.
I love it.
That's
all right, my 3, I'm kicking it over to someone on the LA Chargers and Tyrod Taylor. And the stock that I'm aligning to Tyrod Taylor is Skype. And the reason why I'm aligning Tyrod Taylor to Skype is because, just like Skype, Tyrod's a seasoned veteran. He's been in the market for a while. People certainly know his name. I would say he's a household name, just given the amount of teams that he's been on at this point. But Skype has been widely used. It was used at my business. But Skype has a tendency of getting replaced. I know Google's kind of working on some type of screen sharing device. It's like something they haven't even released yet, but they're currently working on to combat Zoom. Zoom is something that my company just switched over to, so we just kicked Skype to the curb. And I feel like this is somewhat in alignment with Tyrod Taylor's career, because despite the fact that Tyrod is a seasoned veteran, he has a tendency of getting replaced a lot. Whether it's in Buffalo, where McDermott just got rid of him, we went the Josh Allen route, whether it was in Baltimore and Joe Flacco just seemed to kind of have his better days and shining days with Tyrod as an afterthought, whether it was in Cleveland where Tyrod thought he was going to get a shot, quick replacement after just 2-3 games with Baker Mayfield, and then now with him in LA, hopefully he's able to start, hopefully he's able to kind of exercise some of that potential I think he still has. But Justin Herbert just got drafted 6th overall. So I figured that would be a funny one to kind of bring up, just because Skype is getting replaced by Zoom, other technologies, just like Tyrod just never seems to be getting his fair shot. So that's my 3.
So quick question for you. Would actually 2 points. Do you think that makes Justin Herbert the Microsoft Teams of this world? Since Teams has taken over Skype.
Yes,
Zoom,
I love that comparison, Si. Love that.
Number 2. Remind me, does Howard Taylor go to Virginia Tech?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm curious.
Yeah, he did.
Would we say it's similar to Virginia Tech being replaced by UVA as the premier college football program?
Oh man, you had to go there, dude. I that's why I'm gonna plead the fifth every single time you say that, Zach.
Hey,
that was a good one though. I will give you props.
It's not like South Carolina has a better college football team in the state of South Carolina either, So
that was a good one. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
I'm gonna move on. This is gonna be a little interesting one. American Eagle. I think we all. That's a little bit of a throwback. I think we've all worn American Eagle in our lives. Or actually, Zach, you love your American Eagle. I've seen you with a good bit of it.
That's right, man.
I wanted to take a moment to bring up Matt Stafford because, like American Eagle, I believe both of these people are slept on. I believe Matt Stafford has been consistently a good quarterback for many years. He's part of I would argue still a part of the younger demographic, similar to American Eagle. The other thing I think gets overlooked is its consistent performance. American Eagle, I believe something like 20 quarters has continued to stay debt-free, has continued to put up positive results. Same with Matt Stafford, even though he hasn't had the best team ever, and even though he isn't a top-tier performer the way American Eagle isn't a top-tier performer in the retailer market, I think Matt Stafford is someone that is just a consistent performer. Every year he's going to go out there, throw for a ton of yards, give you a good bit of touchdowns, put your team in a position to win. And that's why I thought that just seemed like a pretty consistent, even keel comparison. And I also wanted to give Matt Stafford his time on the show because I hate that man doesn't get more credit. Like he gets paid, but he also deserves to get paid, in my opinion. So that's my comparison with Matt Stafford, American Eagle.
I like it. I do agree. Yeah. Matt Stafford is underappreciated. A better environment, he would be much more well respected. So which one am I going to do? I'm going to cheat a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm going to do a stock that's not yet publicly traded. So I'm going to do Joe Burrow, Airbnb. Pretty obvious comparison. Airbnb, at least before COVID, was planning on IPOing in 2020. I actually don't know what they're planning on doing now, if they're doing it later in the year or what. Joe Burrow, number one pick. Haven't seen either of them yet. Well, I mean, we haven't seen Airbnb publicly traded yet, so we don't know how that's going to go. Joe Burrow, we don't know how that's going to go. But I think, we feel pretty darn good about both of their outlooks moving forward. So a pretty straightforward one, but and maybe cheating a little bit. But
Zebo, can I comment real quick before you jump over to number 4?
Go for it.
I'm going to throw my honorable mention out there because Ev kind of hit the nail on the head with that one. I didn't pick Airbnb specifically, but my honorable mention was any successful startup that is about to go public was Joe Burrow to me, because I just kind of felt like that success as a startup was his success at LSU. And I think it's going to translate to an NFL field. And I think that they're going to trade for big money, just like I think Joe Burrow is going to be very successful. And I think he's walking into a great situation in Cincinnati, just like a successful startup would be in a public market, especially post-COVID. So, Evan, that was a perfect little similarity that we had there. So
there you go.
On to you.
Oh, yeah. All right. So my number 4 is Deshaun Watson, and I'm comparing him to GoPro. So as you guys know, I love dabbling with the video editing. I'm the chief editor at Mondays Down South, if you guys didn't know. Low-key flex over here. But the reason why I wanted to compare it to the GoPro is because I do have a GoPro, and I just actually bought the new model a couple months ago. And for something that I've always been a big fan of GoPro because of their revolutionary technology, their action-packed cameras, kind of inspiring different people to travel around the world and carry that with them. And capture a lot of those memories. But GoPro has been so poorly mismanaged that it has underachieved its potential. And the reason why I think that is so characteristic of Deshaun Watson is because he is so unbelievably talented. And I feel like the Houston Texans just don't do enough to truly give him the tools that he needs to succeed. Now, he's good enough to bring them to the playoffs, and he has done year over year, right? But they just got rid of their number one target, D-Hop. The other receivers are a proven track record of not staying healthy. Yeah, they got the acquisition of Brandon Cooks, but is he really a legitimate top-tier threat, right? Is he really, like, if you're a Houston Texans fan, can you confidently say, yes, Brandon Cooks is my number one? I'm not sure. So Bill O'Brien and company, I feel like, are like GoPro leadership, where they, I think they have these great ideas and they bring in these very talented guys, but they always fall through. I mean, like GoPro, they charge you an arm and a leg for all the different necessity or accessories. They have the worst customer service I've ever dealt with because they outsource it. They don't have anyone domestically like answering the phones, at least in my opinion, in my experience. So I figured that would be a nice little comparison. But yeah, Deshaun Watson's my number 4 with GoPro.
I like that. You have one with a lot of talent and something that people like, but is badly mismanaged. That's a pretty great comparison to Deshaun Watson. That's really good. I actually saved this one for last because this is my favorite one that I think I came up with. And it's funny you said Deshaun Watson because he's a part of this picture. I have a stock which is actually outside of the U.S. stock market. So I'm getting a little international, a little weird up in here. But there's a stock. I'm going to give you guys a couple numbers, but there's a stock called Shopify, trading in, I believe, the Canadian stock market. And just for context, the Canadian stock was valued at $80 billion last year, or it is valued at $80 billion after earning less than $2 billion last year. So for context, they're trading at about 50 times revenue. 10 times sales is what's considered expensive for a tech company. They're trading at 50 times sales. So that's about as high as overvalued could be. The reason they're being valued so much is they're considered what could be the next Amazon here in the United States with the way it works in Canada, and that's the reason that they have this outrageous valuation. So with that being said, just like I see Shopify to Amazon, where it hasn't been proven enough to quantify that kind of valuation just because of somebody else's success, I see both Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott in comparison to Patrick Mahomes, because after the news today, I believe that with the money that Patrick Mahomes has commanded and has signed off on, Dak Prescott, who the Cowboys have not figured out their long-term negotiation with, and Deshaun Watson, who hasn't been signed long-term, both, albeit young, solid quarterbacks that have had success in the NFL, are both going to be asking for absurd amounts of money, and they are going to be overpaid because of what Patrick Mahomes just made, and because of the argument that, hey, we have the potential to do what Patrick Mahomes has done with the Chiefs, even though in reality they haven't done a quarter of what Mahomes has done. So I thought that was like almost a perfect comparison in the way that one stock was being overvalued based on the potential and the success of another, just like these two quarterbacks are about to be valued compared to Deshaun Watson. So that's my last one.
Very interesting.
Deep in the weeds on that one. I like it.
Yeah.
My number 5 is also one of my favorites that I came up with. This is Penn National and Ryan Tannehill. I came up with this one. Obviously, Penn National, never heard of them this time last year or whatever it was. I don't know if you guys had. I don't think you had. And then all of a sudden they buy Barstool. Now they're a household name, partially because of Dave Portnoy going on and talking about, how much money he makes off because he owns, a bunch of shares now. Anyway, and then Ryan Tannehill, who, while we had heard of him, all of a sudden gets a location change to Tennessee. And now he's, had a huge year. He's kind of a household name now and getting paid like one. So, and I personally think that'll continue. I think you guys might disagree. And I also think, Penn stock will continue to have success, as will Tannehill. So a little new name, or old name, new face, whatever the saying goes. But a change of scenery that benefited both of those brands.
So you and your Tennessee Titans, man.
Would you
Love
say
the Titans.
Derrick Henry is the comparison of Dave Portnoy to Penn National? Is that how you're putting it? If Ryan Tannehill is Penn National, because I fully believe Ryan Tannehill ain't doing jack if Derrick Henry ain't there carrying the load. That's all I gotta say.
I would agree with that.
That's good. I like that too. My number 5 is Cam Newton, and I'm comparing him to not Planet Fitness but Live Nation Entertainment. So, just everything with COVID, concerts were canceled, festivals were canceled, sports were canceled, right? Just to try to figure out what was going on. And so inevitably, Live Nation, the ticket seller, they struggled a lot. And they kind of had this fallout, right? And I compare that to Cam Newton because he had one of his own fallouts in Carolina where he struggled with that that shoulder issue. He was a little unproven from a stats perspective. I think Sai actually mentioned before that he really struggled with accuracy, which is very true. And so inevitably there was this schism and this fallout between the Panthers organization and Cam Newton. However, once people start getting, I guess, a little bit more comfortable with this, once there are rumors of a vaccine, once there's just more information about COVID, I think that there's going to be a strong V-like bounce back with people slowly getting, or I guess like faster than normal, getting their comfort level back. Festivals start opening back up. Events start opening back up with certain capacity levers. Sports come back. I mean, the NFL has already pretty much said they're coming back. I think the NFL is inevitably going to be the guinea pig for other sports, right? But once the NFL follows suit, I think other college programs are going to go back to normalcy. I think basketball, baseball, et cetera, will be covered throughout. So I think as Live Nation starts to rebound and have that second chance, I think they're going to kill it. I think Cam Newton, who had some of those fallouts for his own, definitely set himself up for success playing under the best coach in NFL history, in my opinion. And so I wanted to connect the two, the player and the stock together for my number 5.
Yeah, I think our stock comparisons for Cam Newton kind of had the same premise of like, at one point being good, kind of down currently, but with a lot of potential to bounce back based on the current thing. So I think we had some similarities there. Do you guys have any honorable mentions? I threw one out there. I have another one, but I'll go after you two if you guys have anything.
I didn't really have any. The one I had was might be somewhat offensive, so I'm not gonna say it.
Fair enough.
The one I liked from the Barstool article was I wanted to get a Tesla mention in here, so I poked around a couple. I poked around with Lamar or Dak Prescott is what they said actually from that article, which I actually thought was kind of interesting because everyone's trying to short Tesla right now. But he just has continued to be pretty good. I mean, even though people want to doubt him. So, but I didn't really have any ones I loved.
If you do the Dak one, I'll do the Lamar one. So one of the ones that I saw as well on that page was connecting Lamar Jackson to Chipotle because, both had incredible performances in 2019, but your one medical/health issue from going from plummeting into a severe catastrophe. So, I just think that is very characteristic of Lamar, despite the fact that he killed it in 2019. He is a little bit more injury prone. He's a lighter quarterback, lighter weight. He's running the ball more. He's running the ball right off these read options. If he gets injured, what happens to the Baltimore Ravens? And I definitely think that is conclusive of Chipotle when they had their big health scare a couple of years ago and their stock dropped from over 1,000 to under 500. So that's my honorable mention.
So if we're unintentionally turning this into an honorable mention of Barstool ones that we liked, I definitely have one. There was one that was made of the Colts' new and current quarterback, Mr. Philip Rivers, and Johnson & Johnson, the family company.
Great one.
Because of the number of companies that they are a parent company to in comparison to Philip Rivers having an immense amount of children, and the fact that Johnson & Johnson has been successful in terms of statistics and a track record of over like 10 years or over a decade, and that's pretty similar to Philip Rivers. So I hope that that trend remains and that Philip Rivers continues. Let me rephrase that. I hope the trend remains of Philip Rivers being productive on the field. Not, the family life is his own thing. So that's my favorite one that I saw from Barstool, and that's about it. One quick thing before we sign off, I want to point to the fact that we do have an Instagram page, Mondays Down South. We've been kind of waiting for the right moment to roll it out. I think now post Independence Day after this particular segment, that's going to be one that we roll out. It's at Mondays Down South. We will link it in the YouTube, and we'll be sharing it with a lot of our fellow fans. So please be on the lookout for that because we're excited about bringing you more content and bloopers and things of that nature. Zach, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
Nothing for me. I mean, just appreciate everyone for listening, and please do subscribe on YouTube, and like I said, follow us on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, that was Mondays Down South. Take care, guys.